Yeah. So I saw the film the other night. It was really good. I enjoyed it. Very funny and really serious at the same time. So I commend you on achieving that balance. How did the project originally come about?
My very good friend Lucas Evans, who's also an executive producer on the film, was doing a movie called The Circle. And I had been kind of stumbling my way through a screenplay that really wasn't working. And then Jordan and I just sort of became friends. And I said, anything that you have that you want to send my way or sharing material. And he wrote and he shared Summer Night. It was the first script he'd ever written. He wrote it when he was up at Chico State. And there was just something, it was very different than the movie you saw. We worked on it for almost 3 years, but there was just something very, very, really special, something really honest and heartfelt and warm about it that I connected to immediately. And I grew up in a small town, and I had ambitions of being a musician at one point in my life, so I think on a personal level I connected to it too, and I felt I had gone through a lot of the struggles that the characters went through. So it just appealed to me, and I said to Jordan, I think this is something that we could do within a reasonable budget. And then, at first I was just sort of helping him along, and then I was like, we've done so much work. I was like, I think I want to try directing this. And so once we got to that point, we said, let's see if we could get your boss James Possible to be our executive producer, because we felt like it would help just lend some credibility to the project we did, and James is super cool and extremely generous in doing that for us.
Now, you're obviously an accomplished actor. You've been working for over 2 decades now. What was it like coming in as an actor to a directorial role?
I had spent my whole life on movie sets. I had for a long time understood the pace and the vocabulary or whatever the jargon of set is. So I'm very just comfortable on movie sets in general. So that was a leg up for me. And then I had a lot of friends and contacts in the industry, so I was able to call on 2 decades worth of relationships I had made to try to get some support. And then working with actors, I don't want to say it was easy for me, but really was second nature. That's what I had done for forever. So I could really feel if a moment worked or if it didn't, and if they were happy and if they felt confident, and if they didn't. And so I loved working with the actors. That was great. And it was really the filmmaking component that I spent 2 or 3 years just like intensively trying to teach myself, so that I could figure out how to move the camera, why to move the camera, when, what sort of feeling are you trying to evoke, learning lens properties really on the fly, and then learning a lot in the edit, which was, I don't want to say my favorite part of the process, but the edit is it's really special. I mean, so it's very different from being on set.
Yeah, the editing room is basically where the film is created.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like
comes together.
It's like the Ang Lee quote: "Shooting the movie is like grocery shopping, and cutting the movie together is like making the meal."
That's great. I love that. So do you prefer acting to directing, or vice versa now?
Hard to compare the two. They're so different, but the directing is certainly a more comprehensive, involved experience. There's just a lot more to do, and it takes up a lot more of your time and energy. So in that sense, I prefer it because it's so all-encompassing, and it's a new challenge for me too. I've been acting for so long. It's nice to kind of strike out into new territory.
And speaking of challenges, what were some challenges you guys faced on set?
So our biggest challenge came, I haven't really told this story so much yet, but our biggest challenge came in the form of our financing. We had a unique scenario wherein the financier who was meant to come in for the lion's share of the material turned out to be not what he claimed to be.
Oh, wow.
And for reasons that are, reasons still that I'll probably never understand. He essentially was posing as a wealthy individual, and I guess was trying to find the money to present as his own up until the shoot. And anyway, we had the funding for pre-production and for the start of production, and we didn't have the funding. We ended up not having the funding for the rest of production. So we discovered that about 8 days into shooting, and from there it was this mad scramble to finance the film as we were shooting it, which we were able to do, but is not the way I would recommend people make a movie. It's very stressful.
That's a little intense, yeah.
In addition to sort of the traditional budgetary and scheduling constraints of a movie of this size, my wife became a producer at that point. She'd never produced anything. She was a fine artist, but we really needed the help, and she ended up having a knack for it. So when the film when we came to this precipice, we were shooting splits and then we went into shooting nights. So Audrey and I would basically just be working the phones, trying to finance the film and keep it alive. And during the day and at night, we'd be shooting the movie. And she did all this with our 9-month-old on her hip. So
oh my gosh,
yeah, it was pretty remarkable. Yeah, everybody was pretty happy with her. I didn't really think of myself as a producer in this. Like I was putting the cast together myself and the crew and all that sort of stuff. But I wasn't like well versed in what is and is not a good operating agreement for an LLC. I was not. I wasn't prepared for all of that. So it was certainly a crash course in all components of filmmaking, and it was the best experience I've ever had that I would never want to relive. That's how I would put it.
a little bit of a love-hate relationship.
Mhm. It was great. It was formative, and I never want to do it like that again.
Gotcha. Noted. So I'm curious. You've got a very diverse cast here. It's a big cast. It's a great cast. What was it like? What was the casting process like?
Well, two things. We didn't have a casting director, and I didn't have any of the, because it was independently financed, really independently financed, not like foreign sales independently financed. It was just equity, so I really had no constraints in terms of casting. Sometimes you'll have to cast based on the metrics that people have come up with in terms of actors' foreign value, and you'll have to kind of back into a cast that makes sense on the financial and on the creative side. But on our movie, honestly, I could just cast whoever I wanted, which is one of the joys of financing a movie yourself. And so what I would do is I would just look through movies and television shows that had people of the right age, and just watch materials. And then when I felt like somebody could be right, I would reach out to their reps and get more material on them. And then, being an actor myself, I had no interest in doing some, long casting process where I get to sit in a big director's chair and people audition for me. That was like, that's a nightmare, and I don't think it really lends itself to the creative process. So it's like, if all these people could act clearly, they had done a lot of work. So when I would just watch everything I could of theirs, and if they felt right, we would just meet in person and have a chat and see if they were into it. And if they were, we would go ahead with it or have a phone call. There were a couple of people in the movie, I think like 2 or 3 people who auditioned, but it was just because, maybe they had some really great dramatic work in their background, but they hadn't quite done anything with the comedy in it. So I just would have to see one thing. But it was just like, well, why doesn't so-and-so make a tape? But I wasn't like auditioning more than one person at a time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. You know what? I'm also curious. What L.R. Coltrane? You both actually kind of resemble each other in a way.
Yes. So, Victoria talked about that a lot. Yeah.
Was that a conscious thing, or was that?
Well, it's funny. It was not conscious. But I saw somebody do a piece on directors who cast people that look like them in the leads. And so maybe it's this like unconscious thing. But yeah, a lot of people, especially Victoria, commented on that. You guys could really play brothers. Yeah. And Elder and I got along really great too. So maybe we are long lost relatives, and we'll find it out over the course of this process.
I love it. Any plans to direct anything in the future?
I'm itching to figure out what it is. I just haven't had that like moment where I read Jordan's script and it just became clear to me. I just haven't figured out what it is yet. I've got like a couple books that I'm thinking about. I just need to figure out what that piece of material is. And I think that now that Summer Night is getting out into the world, and my work on it's not done, but feels like I'm about to drop my kid off at college or something like that. It's like, I'll enter into a new chapter. I have a feeling that I'll be able to really kind of redirect my focus to finding, what the next piece is. But I loved that process and was so happy to have gotten to do it. And yeah, we'll absolutely be doing it again. Hopefully.
Well, you certainly have a knack for it. I'm curious.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. What do you hope audiences take away from the film?
Do you mean like, is there like an overarching message?
Yeah. Like, what do you hope audiences just, what do you hope resonates with anyone who goes see it?
Well, I think that a big part of what drew me to it emotionally was the Seth Mell storyline. When I first read the script, my wife and I were thinking about kids. By the time we were underway putting the movie together, Audrey was pregnant, and then when we were actually shooting the movie, my daughter had been born. So I went through all those same fears that Seth goes through in the movie. So, I think that I think really what it is for the young men specifically in this film. Well, first of all, the film doesn't pull any punches about about who's the superior gender here. I mean, the girls really have their heads screwed on right, and the boys are just like chickens with their heads cut off.
Right.
But for young men at that age, you're kind of, at least for the young men in the film, they're sort of staring down these two possible roads, at the fork that they're at. There's the Justin Chatwin character of the Andy, the sort of like eternal bachelor, responsible only to himself, seemingly free, of all concern in life. And then there's the Chris Davis character, comes across as much more fulfilled, but also much more duty-bound. So, I mean, it's like, I guess the takeaway from the movie is, if it has a message, it's like, wake up to the importance of being good to the people that you love and that love you. And it's a bit of you at a certain point, I think, need to give up some of the hedonism and the indulgence of your youth in order to find a little bit more meaning in life.
Right. It's all about responsibility. And I think an alternate title of the film would be Give and Take.
Yeah. I think that's actually, that's funny. That totally could have been a title.
When you were a kid, you worked on 2 Michael Keaton films, Desperate Measures and Jack Frost. What was it like working with Batman?
Well, he's awesome. I mean, I learned so much. Like what I learned about acting on sets when I was a kid, like you can't teach it. Like the experience that you get of being on movie sets with these tremendous actors is invaluable. I'll always remember there was a scene in Jack Frost, I think it's toward the end, where like my character is saying goodbye to his. It's so funny to talk about doing dramatic scenes with a snowman dad, but for the sake of the conversation. It's the scene where my character is saying goodbye to him for the final time, and it really was a very emotional thing. And I remember still very well him coaching me through that and sort of giving me the permission to throw away the script. And he's saying that in that moment, I think you'd be saying, what? Like, what do you mean? Where are you going? And so he just like cracked it open for me to let me play it. So I'll always remember so many great actors that I got to work with that I'll always have those memories and those lessons that stick with me.
Are there any actors that you haven't worked with already that you'd want to in the future?
Oh man, so many actors that I haven't worked with that I'd love to in the future. I mean, there are directors that I would like, directors like Martin Scorsese or Paul Thomas Anderson that I would like, Alfonso Cuarón that I would like, cut off my pinky toe to work for. I love Julianne Moore. I love John C. Reilly. I think he's incredible. I mean, there's a lot of really, really, obviously Meryl Streep would be amazing to work with.
I could even see you in a Coen Brothers film. I don't know.
Oh, hey. From your lips to God's ears, as they say. That would be incredible too. I would lose my other pinky toe for that.
Nice, perfect. It works out. So how can people see Summer Night?
Summer Night's coming out in 10 theaters at 10 cities on July 12th, but it'll also be out on VOD the same day. So on July 12th, you can rent it on iTunes or buy it on iTunes or Amazon.
Cool. All right. Well, it's a great movie, and congratulations again. And I hope to see more directed films by you in the future.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.